Today's guest is Christopher Penn. He's the co-founder and chief data scientist at TrustInsights.ai. All right, Christopher, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. Always happy to show up. I like showing up on podcasts. I've been part of podcasting since 2005.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think we connected on LinkedIn in and around that, and I've always thought of you as someone that's always interested in new things and always willing to try and push that boundary. So I'm always excited to hear what you have to say on topics of marketing or technology.
Yeah, and that's there's a lot to talk about these days. It all comes down to two little letters: AI.
Well, why don't you sort of navigate through what you want to share in those areas, because I know it's a big area.
It is a giant area. What is interesting to what's got me busy these days is looking at how people are taking the AI engines that exist. The models like OpenAI's Alphabet Soup GPT-4o and O3 and O4 Mini High and O3 Pro and stuff like that, and Google's Gemini models. These are the engines of these of AI. And what's interesting is seeing how people are or are not building the rest of the car, because a lot of the time the engine, yes, very powerful, very capable. But when you watch how the average person uses a tool like Gemini or Chat GPT or Claude, they're basically a copy paste monkey talking to the engine. It's like they're trying to ride an engine down the road. Like, yeah, you don't have the rest of the car. And so you're like, oh, why can't, you hear this especially with the detractors. People like, oh, why can't AI check my email? Because it's an engine. The email is, like the car radio. It's not connected. It's not in the engine. You need to have the rest of the car. And that's where, in terms of when we talk about how people are or are not getting benefit out of AI, that is the number one thing, is they have not connected the engine to anything else. And so they're wondering why why they don't have a car, and B, why they're not going anywhere.
All right, what's the simplified version of trying to connect the pieces so you have more than just the engine?
So my co-founder and CEO, Katie Robert, has this whole framework called the 5P framework: purpose, people, process, platform, performance. And the starting point is always, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? Like, what are you trying to do? Even with a simple thing like, people say, oh, I can't connect AI to my Gmail. Yeah, why? Why do you want to do that? What do you want to do? Like, I have an idea. Like, I'm actually in the midst of writing a Thunderbird extension, because I use the Thunderbird mail client. And I'm using generative AI to write this tool that will help me auto unsubscribe from stuff that I don't want. Like, I'm just going to put emails in a folder, and the tool is going to connect to Thunderbird. It's going to read the emails one by one, pass them to a language model. The language model is going to evaluate whether or not there's an unsubscribe link. And if there is, it's then going to return it, use an agent, a browser agent, to try and click on that link, and then give me a success or fail report. The AI model is just a very small part of that. There's all these other connectors that need to be in place for this thing to work. And so the 5P framework is, what am I trying to do? I want to get less email, right? That's the purpose. And the performance, which is on the back end, is I get less email that I don't want, right? So those two bookends are so important. And a lot of the time, the critical mistake people make, and I'm guilty of this too, is, oh, let's go right to the tool. What tool can do this? Well, what AI tool should I be using? What vendor should I be paying attention to? And that's the last thing, literally the last thing on the list. It's, what do I want to do? How do I know if I've done it? Is AI even the right tool to do it with? Right. So I was working on a client project this week, and there's a difference between classical AI and generative AI. Classical AI is stuff like regression analysis, attribution modeling, uplift modeling, forecasting, hardcore math. And then generative AI is like, write a blog post. And so this project, the client came to us saying, oh, we want to use AI to do this. But in their heads, they were thinking generative AI. How do we get ChatGPT to do this? And the input call and the project plan is like, no, that's the wrong tool. Like, you need to be using classical AI. You need to be using a certain type of modeling, mathematical modeling, to do what you want. Now, you can have generative AI write the recommendations from it, but it can't do the math.
Got it. So you basically, what's the objective, and then go to the tools instead of just chasing the next tool and just reading off sort of things it can do, just trying to figure out what, you have going on and trying to figure out where it could possibly help.
Exactly, because it's like saying blenders. We're all in on blenders. We're going to use blenders for everything, and everyone's like, "Yeah, but we're a steakhouse. How are you going to cook a steak in a blender? Right? You can't." Um, and starting with the tool again, I'm a nerd. I love playing with toys. I get excited by like, hey, a new model dropped. This new thing, Voxtral from the Mistral AI company has dropped, which is a language model based transcription model. It's got state of the art performance on voice transcription. I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. But that's from like an R&D slash hobbyist perspective, not a how do we get to results that people actually care about perspective,
Yeah.
which is that to me is again it's another area where a lot of people in the AI space today are falling short. They're so focused on the tech, which is good, it's important. You need to know what the tools can do. You need to know what tools are available in the kitchen, but you also need ingredients, a chef, a recipe, a person to consume the food, right? A menu, all this other stuff that is that the appliances can only do so much.
Yeah, for sure. No, I wouldn't call myself a high-end user. I'm curious, but I always wonder, like, AI and its ability to access the data to connect those two. Where are the bottlenecks? How is it going to be resolved? Where are the problems going to be? Like, because people own this data, right? And content. So how is that going to be all resolved, or what are the topics around that?
When it comes to working with data, a big problem people have with most generative AI is using the wrong data with it, using the data in the wrong format, asking it to do things that it can't do with that data, or trying to use too much of it. So let's pick this apart. Um, Data that is in the wrong format. For example, there was a study that came out about a month ago, and even a new study from OpenAI recently that said that, yeah, in terms of being able to read a spreadsheet, these tools can read a spreadsheet successfully about 17% of the time, right? So
Oh,
you think
wow.
you're putting in an Excel file and it's like, oh yeah, draw some conclusions. Like, no, it's just making shit up because it can't see it, it can't understand it. So you have to take that tabular data and convert it into a language that a language model can understand, which a good example is JSON, JavaScript Object Notation. It's a format where it takes a spreadsheet, breaks it apart, and then basically turns every column and row heading into labels. And it makes a very long, like almost like a grocery list, a computerized grocery list. AI can read that. AI can read that with much more success than a table. It doesn't know what to do with tables natively. Second thing is like asking it to do things with data that it can't do. These tools cannot do math. Period. End of story. The underlying models are incapable of doing math because they are predictive engines that predict the next thing in a sequence, and that is not how math works. If I say 14 plus 15, we compute through symbolic logic the answer being 29. Right? 14 of these things or 15 of these things, put them together, we count them all, it's 29. If you ever gone to these tools and say like, do a word count of my articles, like, oh, you have 679, words, and then you put it in an actual word processor, like 800 words, like what happened? Because they can't count. From a predictive next object, if I say 14, then I say 15, the next prediction is probably 16, right? So it under the hood inside the model, it's like the most probable next item to 15 is probably 16, and that's not the answer. The answer is 29. So that's number two. Problem number two is working with data. You're asking it to do things that it can't do, and so it will hallucinate. It will try and guess based on what it's seen in the past, but you can't teach these tools to see every possible math problem. It's impossible. So
Yeah.
the third issue is giving it too much data. So these tools all have two forms of memory, long term and short term. The long term is called latent space. It's all the data they've been trained on, and that's just a series of probabilities. In the short term, when you open up a new chat in Gemini or Claude or Chat GPT, you have a window of what's called tokens, which is roughly like three-quarters of a word. And as that window fills up, the tool starts having to work harder and harder just to come up with answers. We think as humans, I give a prompt, it gives me a response. I give it another prompt, it gives me another response. And we think the prompt that we're giving is the prompt for the next response. But behind the scenes, what's happening is the entire conversation gets fed back to the tool every single time. So as conversations get longer and longer and longer, eventually the tools start to lose cohesion. They're like, I can't remember what all's been said in this conversation. And you get more hallucinations. If you've ever done any work with coding, you will see these tools just start going off the rails after a while because they've lost cohesion. So a lot of people try to hand these tools so much data that they can't handle it. So you have to chunk up the data and have, break tasks down into subtasks. You can give, a 50-page document easily, a 100-page document easily, and that's fine. But when you start getting into things like, a congressional bill that's like 2,000 pages long, it's harder for the tools to do that and operate on it successfully. So we recommend to people, particularly if you're going to be doing an atomic process, do it one at a time. So, for example, read my inbox and tell me, what emails I need to respond to. Don't hand it the whole inbox. Hand it one message at a time, and then behind the scenes, programmatically, you're basically starting a new chat every time you hand it a new message, and it performs much better.
Got it. That's a good tip. Okay. So those are the challenges. I mean, I think that's the when you talk to people, what are the common things you are helping them with, or common things you see that they can do to increase their ROI, like your average business executive?
Well, I have a lot of very strong words to say about this. I despise the question, what's the ROI of AI? Because my first question back is, how are you measuring your ROI now?
That's
And
true.
I get a long, awkward silence, like 95% of the time. If you don't know what your ROI of what you're doing is now, don't bother asking about AI because you can't measure it. You have no idea what before and after is. You're like, oh, I'm much healthier now. Yeah, how do you know? Like, I weighed myself. Yeah, but you didn't weigh yourself before. So you have no idea whether you're doing better or worse. And a lot of people who say that question fundamentally don't even understand what ROI means, right? ROI is return on investment, earn minus spent divided by spent. It's a mathematical formula that applies to financial outcomes. If you are not measuring in dollars, you ain't doing ROI. I love when people talk about return on engagement and return on relationship and return on this, like, no, you're just making shit up. These are math equations, and you're not doing math. So that's rant number one. When it comes to AI, there's two different branches of use in business for business impact. One is optimization and one is transformation. Optimization is we're going to do the same thing we've always done, but we're going to use AI to do it bigger, better, faster, cheaper, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. That's a good use of the tools to say, okay, it took me an hour to write a press release that no one's going to read. I'll now use AI to take 30 seconds to write a press release that no one's going to read. Same outcome, no one's going to read it. So we just want to optimize and cut off time for something that we know is a low results generating thing, but we have to do it. Like if you are governed by SEC regulation FD, fair disclosure, the gold standard is still a press release. You have to send these out, have an AI do it. You will save yourself an hour. Optimization frees up time and money and headcount and resources to then pursue transformation, which is to do something different than you've always done. The example I give often, um, back in the 1930s in Korea, when it was still occupied by Japan, there was this company called Mitsubishi, and Mitsubishi was an import-export company that did mostly fish and seaweed. After the occupation ended and Korea was liberated in the 1950s, Mitsubishi rebranded. They used their Korean name instead of the Japanese name they're forced to use during the occupation, and they changed what they did. And the company name today is still the same, and there's no fish involved. The company name is Samsung. Samsung, the only dried fish you're going to find is like in the cafeteria, employee cafeteria. That's it. So they did a complete transformation. Yes, they still do import export, but now instead of fish, it's phones and whatever else Samsung makes, which is like every electronic on the planet. So with AI, your mission is to think about what do our customers want? What are the second and third order effects downstream? If you are a company that has a news wire that does press releases, as an example, what's the second order effect? What is it that the customer does downstream with your product or service because everything's connected. Can you produce things that are second and order, third order effects instead of just the thing itself? That would allow you to occupy more of the value chain that the customer has. Or for here's where you are in the ecosystem, what about upstream in the value chain? Are the inputs that you turn in that you have that you can impact and maybe do optimization, maybe do bigger, better, faster, cheaper upstream so that you save customers more money upstream that they can then give you downstream. So that's how you would use these tools from a transformation perspective to say, what capabilities do they give us that we don't have? Because they bring the skills. That's the thing is generative AI tools are extremely capable in their domain of language. Um, they are extremely capable of bringing skills you don't have. They can write songs and make video games and write code and do all these things. What would you what would you like to do? What capability would you like to have that you don't have right now that you could have with these tools? In which case, the three things that you need to think about, this is what I say at the end of all my keynotes. The three things that will separate winners from losers, whoever has the most best data will win because data is the fuel that these things run on. Whoever has the most best brand, because brand recall, brand is everything now. That you have to be able to be top of mind so that a customer knows to even ask for you. And the most important, whoever has the most best ideas, because the tools can do it, but they don't do it by themselves. You need to ask, hey, can I create a video game out of this press release? Yes, you can. Okay, great. How? Go do it for me. I've done this. I did this on stage. I took the most boring press release in the world. I fed it to Google Gemini. I said, in the canvas, let's make a video game out of this. Choose the appropriate JavaScript library, and we rendered it on stage, right on stage. And people are like, wow, that's like it's like this little side scrolling shooter. And it was so cool because people are like, I didn't know that AI could do that. Like, yes, it can because it codes. Coding is language. Language is what it does. It can make software. So what could your company do upstream or downstream in your value chain that you can't do right now?
Hmm. I like those examples. Um, most best data. I guess best brand, best idea, best brand. Let's dig a little further into that. Marketing is a big area for you. Are there any what are the areas or things to consider there? You gave some ideas, but
In what sense?
let's say what would the a marketing organization that would be AI, sort of assisted or leveraged look like in the future?
Well, for one thing, I would say the thing you're probably going to see the most across the board is you're going to see relatively static headcount. For companies that are progressive, they will say, okay, we're going to take people, upskill them. We're going to need fewer people in the roles they're in today because machines can do more of the individual tasks, but we're going to keep the people and get them doing different things, better things, more things. In a regressive company, they're just going to fire people as fast as they possibly can. In either scenario, you don't see job growth. You see static headcount. So that's going to be one of the things that is going to fundamentally challenge a lot of the marketing space. Scott Brinker over at Martech talks about this. He said that AI is actually a harbinger of doom for SaaS companies that charge by seat. Right? If you are paying by seat and I need 35% fewer seats because AI does it for me, your revenues have just gone out the window because I don't need it. Same for commercial real estate. If I need 35% fewer employees, I need 35% less office space, and you're gonna lose a lot of money. So those are going to be some of the bigger impacts. On a marketer side, the biggest change that marketers need to be prepared for, because it's happening already, is changes in the buying process where machines do some or all of the buying process depending on what it is. Two real quick examples. One, Visa just rolled out an AI first credit card of all things, right? That comes with an app that has a chat agent in it. And then so you go into the chat agent and you say, I want to book a hotel, within this price range on these dates. Find me some options, and it gives you three options, and then says, which one do you want to buy? And you just tap on the button. Says, great, I'll go buy it for you. It'll be on your Visa card, and you'll be ready to go. And it sends you the confirmation, and the agent does it. right? So suddenly, all that marketing energy you've been spending to get your property, all search engine optimized, gone out the window because Visa's agent is using its own data and its own crawlers to figure that out. You have to figure out how do you influence that if you can at all. Now, the good news is most of these tools on the back end do use traditional search data to power that. Second example, and this is I see this happening a lot more in B2B marketing, is tools like the deep research tools and the agent and the operator tools out there. ChatGPT's new agent that came out yesterday, as of the day of recording this, their operator agent, their deep research tools, Gemini's deep research tools. I don't have to work particularly hard now to go to Gemini and say, "Hey, you know what? I'm in the market for a new CRM. I need it to be $25 or less per person. It needs to have these features. It needs to be compliant with these regulations. Go build me a shortlist." And it goes off, and for 45 minutes, it does the research and comes back with my shortlist with pricing wherever it can find pricing and stuff like that. And hey, if it one of the exclusion criteria I put in my prompts is if there's no pricing, don't list it, right? So all those vendors that are playing cage, like, oh, call us for custom quote. Guess what? You don't make the list anymore. You just don't even get the call. So for complex sales and for anything where you're doing research, you're now going to outsource that research to a machine because it's going to do a better job than you. It's going to do it way faster than you, and you'll probably find the results more useful to you, which means you as a company need to figure out your brand, right? You need to figure out how to get listed in models, which there's a whole three-phase thing with that. And you have to recognize that your the top end of your funnel may be machines talking to machines. So your SDRs and BDRs and the people who are dialing for dollars increasingly maybe not talking to humans if anyone even bothers to pick up the phone.
Yeah. You talked about sort of a three-step area just now. What were you referring to?
So, in terms of being found by AI,
Yeah.
there's three different forms of this, right? And a lot of people, again, are kind of mixing it all together, using a lot of very confusing terminology, and there's a shit ton of snake oil in this. So, there's three functional areas. There is the models themselves and the latent knowledge in them. So, when models are made, all models, they're trained on data. We just saw, for example, Llama 4 from Meta was a spectacular failure because they changed how they got their training data. They were using Common Crawl, and they switched to their own web crawler for this model, and it was just a bad idea. But all model makers are ingesting massive amounts of data relatively infrequently, like once a year from the public internet, for as much as they can get, and boiling it down into probabilities that become part of the model itself. And so to even be known by the model, you've got to have a lot of content everywhere, which is why I always say pretty much yes to any podcast that wants to have me on. I don't care if you have 2 listeners, as long as you're posting on YouTube and you're publishing a transcript somewhere, because the more places I am and the more places I can mention, Christopher Penn and Trust Insights and generative AI, the more data is out there that's going to make it into the models themselves. So that's part one. Part two is AI assisted search. This is predominantly Google's AI mode and AI overviews, where you see a summary of, like, hey, I've done this thing and I've consolidated this, and here's the answer to your question. If you look at the published academic papers and patents, and a hat tip to Dan King at iPullRank for the patent side of things, following the steps of the late great Bill Slawski. And you look at how Google has patented these things and the academic papers they've released for conferences, they tell you exactly how these tools work. And it's, guess what? Grounded in traditional search. Like good old fashioned SEO is how these tools garner a lot of their data, but it's more sophisticated because there's a language model that does what's called query fan out, which is basically go and search a bunch of sites on the fly to get results. So these tools for being found in this style of AI, you need to be present in the models, yes, because Gemini is the underlying model for this. Gemini Flash, I believe it is, or I think it's either Flash or I think it is Flash. But then you also have to still have traditional SEO so that these tools can validate, the good old EEAT, expertise, experience, authority, trustworthiness. And then the third category is AI replacements for search. So Perplexity, ChatGPT search, and Claude's web search. Those have, in many cases, their own crawlers, their own search catalogs, or they have APIs that they are tied to, like Bing's API, for example. That again, you have to know traditional search to do well on those, but you also have to be looking at where are these tools getting their information. So put in, let's say you are a marketing podcast, you would ask all these tools in both regular mode and deep research tool. Make me a list of the top 20 marketing growth podcasts, right? Ignore the results. Look at the sources. Where are they getting their information from? That is your hit list then as a marketer and as a communicator. Say, I need to be in these sources because that's where this tool is getting the information about my sector. So that's sort of the three different areas. And you need to do all three. You can't just wing it and just do one of them.
Yeah, no, that's very good. If someone wanted to, they don't feel like they're quite in the game with this, and they want to follow and get more up on the curve, what can they do?
Well, there's the completely self-serving courses that we offer, mastering prompt engineering for marketers and generative AI use cases for marketers. There's a crap ton of free stuff on our website, including the AI optimization cheat sheets. There's an 8-page guide. It's free on the Trust Insights website at TrustInsights.ai. And then the biggest thing is getting involved in communities that, like Slack and Discord communities, where this stuff is being discussed, because this is all technology based, the cutting edge, the super hardcore nerds are the ones who are finding stuff first. And so if you want first mover advantage, you've got to hang out in those places, and they can be obnoxious, right? Those communities are typically not kind to the ignorant. But that's also where you're seeing like ground level stuff where, when OpenAI pushes out an announcement, go into the OpenAI Discord and suddenly like 300 chats that occur in like a minute, and people are like, oh, I tried this and this is what happened, it didn't work. And you see like people from OpenAI responding like, oh shit, try again, or that's not working or that's broken. And so you get the sort of the inside line from the communities around these spaces. The vendors all have their own private communities. They're free to join, but you have to learn systems like Slack and Discord, especially Discord, because that's where a lot of them spend their time. And B, you have to invest the time to dig around in those places. No one's going to do it for you. There's no AI that will summarize it. You have to do the legwork to look around and see what people are saying. Same for places like Reddit. There's some phenomenal subreddits. They are rough places. They use very coarse language. There's a lot of bias, and there's a lot of unpleasantness, but there's also a lot of valuable information. So you've got to be able to weed your way through the crap to find the gold.
Yeah. Well, Christopher, I appreciate that. Your wealth of information. I appreciate you taking the time.
No, thank you for having me. And I forgot one other thing. No matter what you're doing, if you're not on YouTube, you're missing the boat. And the reason why is that every AI model is training on YouTube data because it's the richest source of video, images, text, and audio. So if you're not publishing on YouTube and you're not present on YouTube, you missed the boat. Time to get going.